Hey, often here, we look at some of Scooby-Doo's scariest villains, as it's become a popular and often requested series on the channel. A lot of the time, though, it's the Scooby-Doo show that gets all the attention. However, there is actually one particular episode worth taking a break from that over, so that we can return to the king, Where Are You? Only one Scooby episode ever gave me nightmares, which started this channel, but there's one OG series villain that always sticks with me more than the rest. It also just so happens to be the overall final episode of the series, so I'd say the original show went out on a strong note. And to make it better, it aired on Halloween Day. Season 2, Episode 8 of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Don't Fool with the Phantom aired October 31st, 1970. And if this episode is one that you don't pay as much attention to, I think it's time we change that. This villain may not have shown up in Monsters Unleashed, ironically where he would fit more than any of them, but this isn't a ghoul or episode to take lightly. Let's get into the Wax Phantom. Things open a little more inconspicuously, as Daphne and Fred are dancing as part of a dance game show on TV. Definitely an interesting and very 60s dance. Shaggy and Scooby go up next, fittingly involving food in their number. It gets pretty dark fast though, literally, as the lights go out and we get our first glimpse at the glowing Wax Phantom, making some spooky sounds similar to the Space Coop. When the lights return, Velma is pissed at Johnny, the host of the show, doing such a publicity stunt when they hear someone making some noise. Turns out it's Johnny, confirming this wasn't a publicity stunt, only remembering the Wax Phantom when the lights went out, who apparently has been sending threatening notes to the TV station for a while. He recalls Grisby, an old man who used to make wax figures but was eventually let go from the station and then swore revenge, promising to bring to life one of his wax creations like we just saw. And as they take things in, Mr. Stevens, the station manager, has vanished. He was last seen behind the gang, which is important. Velma wonders how such a big figure could just vanish, especially with a hostage, which Daphne says points to it being true. I also think it's so interesting to listen to Heather North as Daphne in her first 8 episodes, because sometimes it's very different from what she settled into, just a little bit more deep and slightly sultry, especially in this entire episode, where it never really goes that far in later shows.
Unless the curse of the Wax Phantom is true, somebody forgot to lock the door. Where's Shag and Scoob? Somebody must have accidentally dropped it. That's because he's looking for us. Now if the Wax Phantom doesn't drop in on us, then it's got us. We're prisoners of the Wax Phantom.
Interestingly, Scooby finds some wax footprints that lead to a window, except they are currently 10 stories up. Johnny urges them not to call the cops because the bad publicity could be the last nail in the coffin for the TV station financially, so Velma supposes they have a mystery on their hands. Fred and Daph will check out the Wax Museum, while the other 3 will talk to Grisby, much as Shaggy doesn't want to.
How about like when?
How about like Christmas?
Okay then. Merry Christmas.
Daphne loses her lips, and somehow, for some reason, the other 3 leave on a scooter they apparently have. Upon inspection, the place is definitely fitting the atmosphere of someone that would send a Wax Phantom for revenge. A big enough fright sends the boys into Velma's arms even. Grisby opens the door, and I defy anyone to say that's a regular living human with even the strange unnatural skin color. If the Wax Phantom wasn't already off-putting, this guy just adds to it. As soon as they step in, you've got this raven, you've got this creepy skull, you've got a skeleton in an electric chair, completely normal things to have. Grisby already knows why they came, having seen it in his crystal ball. And Scooby has this strange moment of this ghost thing coming out of this box until he sneezes it away. Not any better than these skull things coming out of the cauldron. Grisby has a little maquette of the Wax Phantom, confirming it was his choice to send it, so the trio decide they need to head back and warn the others. Scooby waving to the skeleton, who actually somehow waves back while Grisby laughs them off. At the museum, the Phantom is definitely out and about amongst the creepy wax crawlers. Either someone forgot to lock the door, or the Phantom left it open, because Fred and Daph get in, just to be locked in themselves. They get distracted by another fright though, enough for her to jump into his arms. Interesting. Old Waxy shows himself, and I guess Fred put her down really quick so they could run off. The trio of course are confused by the van being here while the doors are locked, but with an offering of Scooby snacks, the 2 make their way inside and help Velma. They aren't very happy to have landed in the monster display, and it's interesting that there are so many reminiscent of Mr. Hyde, given how many times the story has been brought up in the series. Between a bat coming down as part of the show, and a ghostly hand that doesn't seem like it is, the Wax Phantom watches them run off on the backs of Velma, running into the other 2. Next to Scooby, they end up finding an airline ticket to South America, so they look for more clues and find the empty Wax Phantom display. Why there is a Wax Phantom display to begin with, I don't know. I guess Grisby created the character before his shenanigans, and that's why he had the little maquette of it. Kind of weird to have a display of of his OC though. The boys find what they believe to be food, and what's also interesting here is the wax figure at the table. This isn't just some random design, this is actually Black Widow, a villain from another Hanna-Barbera series, Space Ghost. The trio meanwhile get dumped into a trap, locked away, while the Black Widow starts feeding the wax food to the boys. The Wax Phantom warns them that they too will become wax if they don't leave, so they run off to the topsy-turvy room, where everything is upside down. They manage to somehow crawl over to the table, pick up a different box of Scooby snacks, and who knows why it was there or how it was defying gravity by sitting on the table. Clearly not locked down. I mean, the snacks themselves just fall as gravity would normally work, and just as they think they got out safe, the moans of the Wax Phantom were always so creepy to me. It's surprising his voice actor, Michael Stoll, was only in one episode of the series, although apparently he was the announcer for 220 episodes of Judge Judy in the late 90s, his only other notable credit. Anyway, the old Phantom managed to teleport and grab the boys up. The trio try to find a way out, and Velma finds a hidden compartment where they find all the stolen money from the TV station.
Oh, that old Phantom, he makes me so mad.
Velma, you did it again!
What, lose my temper?
With the way out secured, they start looking for the boys, and good thing because they hear Shaggy screaming and find the Wax Phantom has tied them up and is about to dip them into wax. This itself is such a creepy and potentially horrifying idea, your living body being covered in wax until you potentially suffocate or worse, which has been used to great effect many times in fiction. The versions of House of Wax in particular, the 2005 remake especially, does really well with this concept. That's easily one of my favorite horror films of the 2000s, and the scenes where you find that all the wax figures are actual dead humans and their skin starts to peel off when you remove the wax is just incredibly gross and frightening. Even as a kid, the idea of something like this happening to Shaggy and Scooby here adds a lot more to the tension of this episode.
Not the old ride on the conveyor belt into the wax routine. Oh, no. Like that went out with the silent movies, Phantom, old pal. Do something. Do something? Okay.
Danger-prone Daphne falls, but luckily the wire she grabs hold of changes the conveyor belt, reversing course, and throwing the boys at the Wax Phantom, freeing them. Not that the Phantom is especially happy chasing the boys off. With this, we actually have one of the few scenes with chase music, the way modern versions of Scooby act as if it was in every episode.
I don't need to look around. I'm in heaven. Check out Velma. Pretty Mary Sunlight. She's alright with me. Pretty Mary Sunlight. Everything I need. Come on.
Pretty Mary Sunlight is a really enjoyable song though. I always liked it, and we'll be hearing the song again soon when we look at a certain episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies. We can't overlook Shaggy donning some pretty fabulous drag in this costume here though. Got his wig snatched, unfortunately. The boys finally escape and get grabbed by the others, Fred deciding that they're going to trap the Phantom in his own wax by luring him over to the shower. As soon as the Phantom moans his way over, the boys run through, Daphne locks him in, Thelma drops a crate on him, and the boys lead him over, getting sprayed with the hot wax alongside him, fulfilling my House of Wax nightmares. With the sheriff arriving, Fred bangs the boys out, and that's really unfortunate. That had to hurt. And with the wax on wax, Fred is able to chip away the Phantom costume to reveal the culprit, Mr. Stevens, the station manager who went missing. Remember when I said this shot was important? Mr. Stevens is still right there, while the Wax Phantom is on the stage. How is that possible? Hanna-Barbera would obviously never make such a continuity mistake. I'm joking. As one would expect, Stevens knew Grisby had made a threat and is clearly unhinged, and used it as the perfect opportunity to steal the money and escape to South America. Leaving, the boys seem to have expertly learned how to make wax dummies pretty quickly, hoping they'll be good substitutes for the next mystery, and oh, looks like Daphne went and lost her neck again. Oh, it's back. That's a relief. The boys don't appreciate Fred saying they can't tell the dummies from the other dummies though. And that's the mystery of the Wax Phantom and Don't Fool with a Phantom. This has always felt like more of an underrated episode to me. There's a lot of atmosphere and fright here, from Grisby and his haunted home, the supernatural oddities of which are never really explained and still having potential threat, to all of the dummies in the Wax Museum, the Wax Phantom and his ghoulish moans, and his threat to House of Wax people up. Wax museums by default already tend to be pretty creepy, the uncanny valley effect being pretty severe depending on how bad or even how good a dummy can be. The new exhibit has been one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone since I was a kid, despite the double length, because there's just so much you can do with that kind of setting and idea. This episode doesn't even really use it to its full potential, but just the idea of it works enough here. The end where the boys get turned to wax with the Phantom always stuck with me, as well as them getting released. It's probably a good thing that it seems like it was more of just an inconvenience for them compared to what it really would have been in a real situation. Hot wax is not something you want covering your whole body like that. And again, the moans and voice of the Phantom are really creepy. With how often they reuse the same 2 or 3 voice actors in the show, I'm surprised he never popped up in a future series. But it does help make him sound all the more unique instead of having the same voice actor as 5 other villains like some of them. Speaking of, what is up with Grisby and his weird unnatural skin color, and his spooky commodities covering his entire home? If he's not actually the real deal, I want to know where he shops so I can decorate the same way. I guess the dance really doesn't matter either. They never go back to announce who won the contest, and at this point, who even knows if the station is saved? I have to imagine Mr. Stevens being arrested was not the best publicity with how bad it sounded like it was doing. It's a pretty decent mystery though. It's only about as obvious that it's him as it is for most of the classic Scooby episodes where it's always somebody they met early on most of the time. If anything, this one is stronger just with the addition of such a strong red herring like Grisby. The topsy-turvy room was also a scene that always stuck with me as a kid. This was definitely one of my favorites growing up, even if it's not one that I see brought up quite as much as some of the other original villains. It's practically a comfort episode for me. It just has really great atmosphere. So all in all, I would say the Wax Phantom definitely belongs alongside the scariest villains of Scooby-Doo. I think that covers everything we really need to get to today, so I guess we'll call it here. I have a whole playlist of every other video specifically about some of the scariest villains of the franchise though, so check that out if you want more. Bye!